Hello, and welcome to a Reinvent Yourself podcast. I'm Lisa Andrea. Thank you for joining and listening and watching. My goal is to share insights from successful people in order to help others with the reinvention journey. My guest today is Sugar Jones. Welcome.
Hello.
Sugar has been blogging about life, love, and the internet since 2007. Her tweets about everything under the sun came soon after, about 2008, and that's when things got interesting. Coming from years of marketing and sales experience at various companies, acting as their brand ambassador, and with a desire to work on passion projects, she decided to take a chance and ride the wave of this whole digital thing. She now has upwards of 18,000 Twitter followers and has most recently been doing a series of Facebook Lives called Hot Mess Mondays. Welcome. Thank you, Sugar, for joining me today and taking time out of your super busy day to share your life lessons and insight on this reinvention journey that you've been on.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I love our chat, so I'm excited.
Yeah. So let's talk about when you decided to take yourself from the corporate world, really, as a brand ambassador with all of your marketing experience, and then really ride this digital wave. How did that happen, and what brought you to that decision, and how did you kind of move that into that new career?
So the brand ambassador stuff actually came after the digital wave. But before that, I was doing sales and marketing. And it's funny because I think when you work for a company and you're in sales and marketing, you also are a brand ambassador, and you're representing your company. And so now I just sometimes represent other companies. But at the time, I'd gone from being a waitress to working in sales and marketing in hotels and restaurants, to then being pulled away to a recruiting firm where I got to have my weekends and holidays off, which was nice. And that's when I started having one-on-one conversations as a recruiter, interviewing people for their next jobs.
Right.
And that's when I started going, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm just doing this because I kind of fell into it from necessity of having to wait tables because I, needed to do these things. And then I just kind of flopped along in my career path, but I hadn't actually intentionally chosen a career path. And as I was having those interviews with everybody, listening to how they were intentionally choosing their next path, I was like, well, what's my next path? What's the thing I've always wanted to do? And it came to a head where I was unhappy at the job. I wasn't doing my job well. I was like, I think I need to do something else. And I had to take a big, giant leap. I went back to school. I decided I wanted to finish my degree. Still haven't, FYI. But I did take that leap. And when I did, I started writing. And then at the same time, I had met a man, and, I had 2 kids. So we commingled, and had 2 more kids and all this other stuff. So I got to be a stay-at-home mom. So I had the luxury of kind of indulging myself in just on the fly learning, just anything that I wanted to learn, I would learn, and around the same time. So we got married in 2000. So about the time that my babies started walking and kind of doing their own thing, I started thinking, well, now these 2 are going to eventually go to kindergarten. Now what am I going to do? So I had pushed a pause button to have the babies. And then I started thinking again, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Went back to school because that's what I do. I love going back to school.
Well, it's great to keep learning. Yeah.
Going back to school is like my hobby. I go back and I train a little here and train a little there. And I still had that thing of I wanted to write. I'd always wanted to write. I've been writing since I was 5 years old. Somebody would, have a typewriter out. I would find anything. I would find an envelope, and I would, run it through, and I would just start typing anything. I just had to get the words out on paper, and I had to scribble somewhere, and I was constantly writing. I was like, well, then why don't you do that? So I found this book in Barnes & Noble. It was called Writer Mama. And I was like, oh, so I opened it up, and this woman was doing these online lessons. She was talking about weblogging, because at the time we called it weblogs. And then I was like, well, this is an interesting way to get your words out in front of people, because that was my fear, people reading my words. I have 0 fear of that now.
But it's understandable, like songwriters fear of people just
Yeah,
reading their
because
books,
there's
right?
that you put something out there that you created with your brain and your hands and your imagination, and you put it out in front of others to be judged, essentially, to either be patted on the back, or to be yelled at, or to be to hear, yeah, I get that, I totally understand where you're coming from. And I got more of that. Eventually I got more of that, and I started like accidentally falling into these little groups. And then I found out about a conference and another conference, and I started meeting up with all these, and I found out about Twitter, and I started meeting up with all these people that we all had this desire, this unique desire to share online. And while I started sharing online, I was also going through a lot of stuff in my life. And now we're up at like 2008. We're losing our house. Our marriage is falling apart. The step family situation was really, really kind of scary. So I started doing some self-evaluating, and then that led me into wanting to be a coach, the desire of wanting to be a coach. So I kind of reinvented there, but I kept writing. And now I'm using my words 10 years later for that. So, and here I am now, still writing online, still sharing my feelings, still putting it out there and hoping I'm judged nicely and fairly. Sometimes not, sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm told I'm an angry shrew. And I'm like, okay, well, I did say I was upset,
But it's your own feelings, so you're just putting it out there.
I know. I'm like, well, I'm glad you picked up on that. So now here I am. So still using the words.
When you explain this, it sounds like your path has been a little bit of not necessarily putting down a plan. Can you talk about that? I mean, did you not like think about, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do
not think? You sound like my mom.
Not think. Yeah. You just flew by the seat of your pants. Did you get any help from either any other coaches or friends, family members, people that you trusted?
So everybody in my life knew I was good with writing. Like everybody in my small life knew that I liked to write, and I would write stories since I was a kid. My mom wanted me to write children's books. I think she was afraid of me actually doing like a tell-all about our family and whatever.
We don't a children's book, yeah.
Our family isn't very different, very unique than anybody else. We had the same troubles as everybody else, but she was all very, very private. So I was always being steered to like write children's books, write stories. So my family has always been very encouraging about me writing. And then, just going back to school, and just, I did a lot at the same time, like Google, the internet opened up, and so anything that I wanted to find out, I could. And that's how I found out about the conferences and about Twitter and everything else. And then when I met these group of bloggers at conferences that I had kind of gotten to know on Twitter, we would be online in the middle of the night. I would say, this was back before you could just push a button and get like your whatever template you wanted. You had to create your own templates. You had to learn HTML, and you had to learn design and coding, if you wanted your blog to look a certain way. And so I'd be, my eyes bleeding in the middle of the night searching for this information. And then I would Skype somebody thinking, well, maybe they'll see it in the morning. Oh no, at 2:00 in the morning, they're up doing the same thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when they would just send me, they would copy some code and send it to me, and they'd say, put it here. And I'd go and look for it and put it there, So it was the community that helped build the community, which was amazing. So I think the thing that I love the most about this digital space that I ended up in was the community. So I didn't necessarily have a plan. I knew that I wanted to write. That was my desire. I wanted to write. I knew I'd been encouraged to write. I knew I had some good words to say. I don't always string them up as beautifully as others, but I had stories that I felt like could be shared. And I had friends and family that helped me share that. And then there would be something else that would come along and try this, try that, try this. So I'm very much like a early adopter, I love finding the next new thing. I'm a very curious person. So I don't know, I don't really ever have a plan so much as just a core thing, get the words out.
Well, you're like the living example of, and it's something that I talk about, what did you dream about doing when you were a kid? Well, you you took that, and maybe you had, when you were having children, you had little
Mm-hmm.
periods in your life when you didn't actually act on it, but it seems like it was always your driving force into everything that you do.
Yeah.
Because including being a coach, in order to help a lot of people, you write about it or you talk about it, right?
Yes.
On this lovely
Yeah.
medium that we have. I mean, the
Yes.
internet is good and bad, and we all know that. But the good part about it, because I'm also a very curious person, is that you can sit there and just keep Googling and searching,
Yeah.
and eventually you will start getting not only one person talking about the topic, but like 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, and you can kind of put that all together and get what information you need, right?
I think there's, as far as the internet, you just said the right thing. There's a lot of bad stuff in there. There is so much more good than bad. There is so much, at a time when, and I think this is why mom blogging I wasn't a mom blogger. I didn't write about parenting. I really just wrote about life, but I tapped into this community of women who were at home with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
And we were, you're isolated, and even though there are other moms at home, you're right next door to you, but you're all inside because you've got to, you're just managing the chaos. You're just like, nobody dies today, So when we get on the computer and we would tap into this, and we had this instant community, this instant sharing, this instant building up, it became like the village that we all needed. So there is definitely more good than bad out there.
Which kind of leads me to what I normally ask as the next question is, what obstacles and difficulties did you have along the way? Well, it sounds like this particular community was a way to get through those obstacles, right?
Oh,
Not only with the parenting, but with whatever new desires you have, like the blogging and everything.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. So one of the things that I loved to do was I just love road trips. I love traveling. I just love getting out. And, one time I drove across country with my kids, and I was able to stop at some of these people's homes and just meet them and hang out with them and stay overnight and stuff. So there were things that I wanted to do, like adventures I wanted to have, that I don't think I would have had it not been for for being able to do what I've done, to tap into the small little, I feel like the internet's so vast and so huge. There's billions of pieces of data going up every second, but you tap into this little group of people, and so we would just help each other out, and we still do, we still, people will put out their content just being like, oh, hey, there's this new application and here's how you use it, and everything else, like, hey, let's all play in the sandbox together. There's a lot of competition too. There's a lot of I'm not going to tell you how to do that thing. You can either pay for it or you can figure it out yourself. And that's fine. If you figured out how to do a thing and you're going to rock it, all right, that's fine too.
Okay. So you talk about writing so that everyone can read what you have to say. But what about personal journaling? Because I do emphasize that journaling for yourself to try and figure out what you're all about. I mean, in a lot of ways, you knew what you were all about. You knew that you loved to write, but although you did have different directions that you went in, like the coaching, which isn't all about writing, it's about helping people. Did you journal, or do you journal on a private sense at all? Oh,
I have.
Okay, so emphasizing the importance of journaling. Where's mine?
Oh wait, here's my other one. Hold on. Here's my latest.
Follow your dreams. Look.
This is my life.
And mine, I always try and find something that it just moves me or talks to me.
Yeah.
And that actually gets me to even journal more, because I just love what it says.
Here's what moved me. This is such a superficial thing, but it was pink inside.
There you go.
It had this hot pop of pink, and it was this hard board.
See?
So that I could write anywhere I went. Cause sometimes this one's a little too floppy. I have to be at a desk. But yeah. And then I couldn't, these were plain. So I figured nobody's going to want to open them up or anything like that. I had to put a little heart at the bottom to make sure I remember where the front is. But yeah, I found old journals from, I've been journaling since I was a kid. I used to name my journal. I named it Aussie because I always wanted to go to Australia. So I was like, my journal. So I would every night, instead of Dear Diary, I would Dear Aussie.
So, and what did you, just kind of explain, when you're journaling, what insights and what did you find out about yourself and where you wanted to go from doing
Most of the time I just wanted to complain. You know, I just wanted to just be like, I had such a bad day. Today was a bad day. And other times I just wanted to share like the good stuff, you know, like, and I don't know who I was sharing it to or for. I just felt like, oh my gosh, I need to say these things. I need to share that I'm upset. I need to share that I'm so over the moon, like, you know, first kisses and, you know, that kind of thing. Of course, that's the first thing I talk about is first kisses. But I remember thinking, God, I hope my mom doesn't find out I kissed Eric, you know? And I noticed my daughter, she journals a lot, and she does the same thing. She goes and she finds the, you know, like the texture and the paper and the this and the that, and she'll sit there in front of the journals and be like,
Yep.
who's my nest friend going to be? And I don't go near their journals. I don't touch anybody's things because it's such a private thing. But I feel like you process so much as you're writing. You're dumping things out. You know, you're once you get past the I'm pissed off about this, or I'm happy about this, or I'm excited, and you keep going, you find out other stuff that you needed to tell yourself that day that maybe you forgot. Maybe, you know, you thought this morning I need to go do that thing, or, you know, I need to talk to so-and-so, and maybe you forgot, but by getting all that other stuff out of the way, you remember. Or as you're talking, it reminds you that, you know, yesterday I was sad, today I'm happy. Look at that. I'm not always going to be sad all the time, you know, just little reflections. I don't know. I feel like journaling is the best therapy you can have without actually going to a therapist. I highly recommend going to therapists as well.
Yes, yes.
Therapists and coaches will make the world go round.
Mm-hmm.
But journaling, if you know, you can go to a therapist once a week, but you're in your head all day, every day.
Right. And it's funny because you were just talking about your journal and you said it, and like it was talking to you. So it is a way of talking to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of, you know, what I ask people is how do you get through the bad days? Well, and what you've explained is that journaling gets you through the bad days. You kind of let it out, you vent it on the paper, which means I would assume it's coming out of your own head.
Yeah.
You put it somewhere and then you put it away. Right.
There's this physical thing that happens when you're writing. You have released that in some form. You've released it. You've identified it. You acknowledge it, you know, and it becomes this, you know, you can also continue to like just keep dumping, you know, and I don't think it makes you feel worse. I think it makes you feel like it has its place now. And then you can close the book.
Right.
And you can put it aside.
And it really gets you over things probably a lot quicker than if you just were to stew it and let it continue to cook in your head for days on end, and you've just wasted a bunch of days, and you look at yourself and go, no, I need to go back into the positive place and move on and go towards my goals and whatever it is that I need to do.
And there is a thing too that I like to do that sometimes I'll just be like, oh God, you know, I'll open up old journals and be like, you're still saying the same thing. And so you're just like, how can you sit here and complain about the same thing this many years later? Do something about it. So I don't like to beat myself up. I don't like to beat myself up, but I like to also call myself on the carpet and be like, you are so full of crap. You said you're going to take care of this 5 years ago, but you didn't.
So it could be a motivator then. It's kind of like a way to motivate you.
Totally.
Perfect.
It can also turn into, if you're not in the right frame of mind, it can also turn into, oh my God, I'm still dealing with that. Oh, poor me. So I always caution people, like when you go to look back in your old journals, don't be like hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Be in this place where you're ready to see how far you've come.
Yeah, in a good, strong place, right?
Yeah.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
First.
Yeah, and I started journaling when I was in junior high because we had a great English teacher, and that's what she made you do every day. The first thing you had to do was write.
English teachers.
Mrs. C, and I'll never forget her ever. And in Torrington, Connecticut, and she made us journal every single day, and that kept me, you know, going and going. And I've had periods where I haven't, but you know, it's interesting because the periods where I haven't journaled is the periods where I had the least amount of growth, where I was unhappy and the least amount of growth. And
look at that.
Yeah. So it totally tells you it's a very positive thing to do. And I
really
try and encourage it with everyone. Some people go, oh, well, it's just not me. Just try it. So I have one that I
not.
need to send
So
to
for the
somebody.
people that it's not for them, I'm going to make a recommendation
Mm.
is use your phone
Mhm.
and do voice notes.
Right.
When I can't get to a pen and paper for some crazy
Yep.
reason, or when I'm just too emotional, that I'm just like, my hands are shaking. I went through a big transition the last few years, and sometimes I couldn't do it on paper. I have like 30 voice notes of those moments where I just had to scream into a phone,
So funny that you say that, because I was in a car literally, and
You
sorry,
can't write while you're
reached
driving?
over. No. And I had this whole idea of how I was going to speak to people and motivate. And I just turned it on and I just started talking.
Yeah.
And so now I have it. I don't have to worry about ever losing that thought again. And it was extremely emotional. It got me to the point of crying. It was so emotional. I said, I have to get this out.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said. That's amazing.
Yeah. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be paper or pen, but putting your words somewhere is such,
and your thoughts.
It's so cathartic. It's so valuable. And you're going to hate yourself later when you forgot the thing you wanted to remember.
Yeah. Which at our age is just about everything.
All the time.
For me. Yeah. All the time. So, in my eyes, what you've pretty much always done, at least after 2007 or so in your life, was live a really very authentic self.
Yes.
Life.
Okay. So that's interesting that you actually said that date. I started going to, this is going to sound funny. I started taking recovery classes for codependency around that time because I had been living very inauthentically because I wanted everybody to be happy with me. Again, that's why I journaled, because I didn't want to say things that would upset anybody. And I felt like anytime I did say anything and spoke my truth, I pissed people off that were close to me.
Yep.
And that always causes friction. And a lot of us will go along and get along just to keep everything. And then one day we'll just burst. And then I was the one that was always having the outbursts. And that's because I'd never felt safe. My family will tell you differently. They'll be like, you were the one that was unsafe. I'm like, well, once I burst, yeah. But I never felt safe to be able to complain or process or, I even asked my mom if we could go to therapy when I was in high school. And like, she was just like, you guys are crazy. Back then. Yeah. Back then, back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, going to therapy meant there was something really wrong. Well, now it's like, it's just a human condition. Everybody needs somebody to talk to. So I did. So I got to this point in my life where I realized I'd been just stuffing my feelings, and I'd only been processing through journals. I had so many journals back then. Like I couldn't write enough. There weren't enough pieces of paper. There weren't enough pens, like ink would dry constantly. So I went through this process, and it took a few years. It took several years, actually. Actually, it might have been 2007, 2008 was when I was kind of coming out of it. And that's when I started, blogging and writing and talking to people. But it's so easy to live inauthentically. It's so much easier to live not true to yourself, because you're not pissing anybody off. Everybody loves you.
You're a people pleaser.
You're a people pleaser.
Everything you do is for everybody else. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I can.
Once you start living authentically, everybody goes away. You lose all your friends. Your family's like, what the hell is wrong with you?
And you're going, no, this is the real me. And if you don't like it, then I really don't need to have you in my life.
So that's the circumstance of starting to live authentically, is people will fall away. And it's hard, but at the end, you end up with a smaller, more authentic community, and you're happier. And the person you look at in the mirror is the person you always knew you were.
Yeah. Which, and I'm here to talk about people's reinventions. If you are your authentic self, once you get to that point, then you can do what it's truly meant for you to do.
Then you're like, I've always hated this job. Why am I still here?
Yeah.
Why am I finding other people careers when I want to find my career? And that's where I got to. I was like, why am I finding everybody else's dream job? I hate this job. I want my dream job.
Yeah. So is there any other, we've covered a lot. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with people that are watching this about embarking on just finding your true calling in life and really
Yeah.
having the courage to do that?
Yeah, I would say, listen to your own inner instinct and guide. Um, don't make any crazy rash decisions when you're hurt, angry, lonely, or tired. That's HALT: hurt, angry, lonely, or tired. Um, Tune into yourself daily. Do some kind of journaling, whether it's writing or voice. And then once you're in that state of mind, what you've always known you should be doing is going to reveal itself to you again, because you knew at one point in your life what you wanted to do, who you wanted to be when you grew up, and you still have that chance.
Yeah. No matter what your age.
No matter
I
what.
will keep saying that till the
That's
day I
right.
die, because
Yep.
there's so many people that made their success in their 60s, 70s,
Yes.
80s.
Yeah.
So
Well, Colonel Sanders didn't do Kentucky Fried Chicken until his 60s or 70s or something.
yeah, it was like late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah.
So do not even think about age. I don't believe in ageism. I'm very upfront about my age, and I relish it because it comes with experience.
That's right.
Been on this
That's
earth this long, boy, you've seen and heard and done
Yeah.
a lot of things. So thank you, Sugar Jones.
Absolutely.
Sugar Jones, I'm going to have information at the bottom. I'm sure you'll see her links. We'll give links to your Facebook page. What other pages? Your website.
Well, I have my website, and then my weekly Hot Mess Mondays that I'm going to be starting up again.
And then you want to talk a little bit about your new journey before we
Yes.
sign off?
So now along with the writing and continuing to, speak my truth and be authentic and live authentically, I'm at the point in my life where I want to be a resource to other women. I decided to just specifically work with women because we have a lot of things we stuff our feelings, we do for others. And I want to help women to be able to tap back into, helping themselves and understanding that taking care of themselves isn't a luxury. It's not indulging. It's not self-indulgent. It's just what you're supposed to do, and it's okay. And that's me.
Because I learned from Oprah, I have to say, many years ago, which is you can't take care of others if you don't first take care of yourself.
That's right.
So if you're a mom, if you're a caregiver, which a lot of us are in this age right now as caregivers, you have to take care of yourself in order to be able to take care of others.
And also, sometimes you don't need to take care of others either. Sometimes sometimes you're your own mission, Yeah. So sometimes there are eras in our life where it should be all about you, and it's a really hard lesson. It's a hard place to get to.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Sugar Jones, again, for taking time out of your busy day to talk to everyone. I hope I know I gained a lot of insight and a lot of great information shared here. So tune in and definitely like me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and sign up for my rest of my YouTube videos, which are all these wonderful interviews. And we will talk to you again. Thanks. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.